They told me to watch him, to study him, to gather evidence, to stay detached. No one warned me what it would feel like when the most feared Mafia King in South America looked at me like I already belonged to him. The first time I saw Rafael De Silva burn a man alive, he didn't touch him. The rival cartel leader was on his knees, shaking. 20 armed men stood around the long table carved with saints and serpents. No one moved. No one breathed. Rafael adjusted the cuff of his black suit. "Disloyalty," he said calmly, "is expensive." The air shifted. Heat gathered around him, not wild, not uncontrolled, but deliberate, ancient. Then flames bloomed in his palm. No lighter, no gasoline, just fire. The scream lasted seconds before smoke swallowed it whole. Rafael didn't blink. That was the moment I understood why governments couldn't stop him. He wasn't just a drug lord, controlling ports, politicians, and entire supply chains across South America. He was something older, a dragon lord wrapped in silk and power. And I was living under his roof. Officially, I was Camila Torres, the new nanny hired to care for his daughter. Unofficially, I was a federal intelligence operative sent to expose the cartel king and confirm whether the rumors were true. Fire without fuel, enemies reduced to ash, a bloodline that wasn't entirely human. My mission was simple: infiltrate, observe, destroy. What my superiors failed to mention was how he would look at me. I met him properly that night in the main hallway of his estate. Marble floors, gold-framed paintings, shadows thick as velvet. His daughter had just fallen asleep in my arms. Then the temperature rose. Rafael stepped from the darkness like it obeyed him. Tall, controlled, impossibly composed. "You're the nanny," he said, not a question. I nodded. "Yes, sir." He moved closer, too close. Heat radiated from him, subtle but undeniable. Not body heat, something deeper. My pulse betrayed me. His gaze swept over my face slowly, assessing. Not desire. Claim. "Look at me," he murmured. My body obeyed before my training could resist. His finger lifted my chin. One finger, controlled, commanding. His eyes weren't fully dark. There was gold there, flickering, watching. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. Was that suspicion or instinct? "My house," he continued, voice low and smooth, "has rules." His thumb brushed just beneath my jaw, not soft, not rough, measured. "Break them," he whispered, "and even I won't be able to protect you from what I am." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be, because for the first time since accepting this mission, I wasn't sure if I was hunting the monster or stepping willingly into his fire.
Rafael De Silva did not inherit power. He built it, port by port, route by route, body by body. From the coastlines of Brazil to the hidden airstrips carved into Colombian jungle, every shipment moved because he allowed it. Politicians owed him favors they could never repay. Police chiefs answered to men who answered to him. In the underworld, he wasn't called a boss. He was called sovereign. And sovereigns do not share territory. But the cartel empire was only half the truth. The other half was older than cocaine, older than borders, older than law. The De Silva bloodline traced back to a forgotten dynasty whispered about in burned manuscripts and sealed Vatican archives. A lineage of dragon lords who once ruled through fire instead of firearms. Most of them were dead, extinct, hunted. Rafael was the last, and he carried that extinction like a crown. I learned this in fragments, through encrypted files my agency could barely decrypt, through coded financial transfers that didn't make sense, through the way hardened killers lowered their eyes when he entered a room. But nothing prepared me for living inside his territory. The mansion sat above the city like a throne carved from stone and shadow. Armed guards patrolled the gates, but the real protection wasn't visible. It was instinct. It was heat. It was him. The first week, I observed quietly, logged movements, mapped routines, recorded meetings. Rafael met with generals and traffickers in a private study lined with ancient artifacts. Dragon statues, medieval blades, maps that predated modern borders. He ruled 2 empires from that room, one criminal, one mythical. And somehow he kept them balanced. That was what fascinated me. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't savage. He was disciplined. Cold when necessary, calculated always. But with his daughter, he softened. Not weak, never weak. Just human. I watched him kneel to tie her shoes one morning, his large hands careful, precise. The same hands that could ignite flame without fuel. That contradiction unsettled me, because monsters aren't supposed to have tenderness, and kings aren't supposed to look at their nanny like that. It started subtly, his gaze lingering half a second too long, his presence appearing in doorways without sound, his questions layered with meaning. "Are you comfortable here?" he asked one evening, standing too close in the kitchen while the city lights shimmered below us. Yes. A lie, because comfort wasn't the right word. Awareness was. Constant awareness of him. He stepped closer, the air warmed. "You observe everything," he said quietly. My pulse stumbled. I hire observant people. His eyes darkened slightly, gold flickering beneath the surface like restrained flame. "Just be careful what you're observing," he added. That wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning, or maybe a challenge, because something had shifted. The dragon inside him knew something was different about me. And the worst part? I was beginning to wonder if the heat I felt around him wasn't just supernatural, but inevitable. By the second week, Rafael De Silva stopped pretending I was invisible. He began testing me, not with accusations, with proximity. It started during dinner. His daughter was laughing across the long marble table, unaware that 2 empires were being balanced between sips of wine and quiet conversation. Cartel lieutenants sat at the far end, speaking in coded phrases about shipments and weather patterns. I kept my posture calm, attentive, harmless. Rafael watched me instead of them, not openly, but deliberately. His gaze tracked the smallest reactions, the tightening of my fingers, the rhythm of my breathing, the way I processed information. He was hunting, and I was the only prey in the room who knew it. Later that night, I stepped into the east corridor to send an encrypted update through my concealed device. Transmission, partial confirmation, target displays unexplained thermal anomalies, strong suspicion of non-human physiology. I had just secured the device when the temperature rose behind me. "You're restless at night." His voice was low, close. I didn't turn immediately. That would show surprise. "I couldn't sleep." A lie. He stepped into my space anyway. "You walk quietly," he continued, "but not quietly enough." My pulse kicked hard against my ribs. When I turned, he was inches away. No guards, no witnesses, just the Mafia King and the woman sent to destroy him. His gaze swept over my face slowly, searching for cracks. "You study my house like you're memorizing exits," he said. It wasn't anger, it was curiosity sharpened into suspicion. "I like to know my surroundings," I replied evenly. Silence stretched between us, thick, heated. His dragon stirred beneath the surface. I saw it in the faint glow igniting behind his pupils. "You're not afraid of me," he murmured. It wasn't a question. "I work for powerful men," I said carefully. A mistake. The corner of his mouth tilted, not amused, interested. He stepped closer until my back nearly brushed the stone wall. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. The heat from his body wrapped around me like invisible flame. "I am not just powerful," he said softly. I felt it then, the shift in the air, the subtle vibration under my skin. Predator, ancient, controlled. His hand lifted slowly, deliberately, and braced against the wall beside my head. Caging, not trapping, claiming space. "Men like me," he continued, voice dropping lower, "do not tolerate betrayal." My throat tightened. Is that a warning? His gaze flickered to my lips, then back to my eyes. "It's instinct." The word carried weight, possession, territory, dragon. For one reckless second, I forgot my training, forgot the mission. All I could feel was the heat, the command in his posture, the way the world seemed to shrink until there was only breath between us. Then footsteps echoed faintly at the end of the corridor. He stepped back immediately, controlled again, untouchable. But his eyes held mine a moment longer, and this time there was no doubt. He didn't just suspect me, he wanted to, and that was far more dangerous. Because predators don't chase what they plan to kill. They circle what they intend to keep. The first time he touched me on purpose, it wasn't gentle. It wasn't rough either. It was deliberate. A rival shipment had been intercepted that afternoon. The mansion shifted into quiet lockdown mode, guards doubling patrols, lieutenants speaking in low, urgent tones. Tension moved through the estate like a living pulse. I was in the library with his daughter when the power flickered. Once, twice, then darkness. Her small fingers tightened around mine. "It's okay," I whispered, though my instincts screamed otherwise. Footsteps approached through the corridor, measured, unhurried. Rafael. Emergency lights hummed faintly to life, casting the room in gold shadows. He stepped inside like the darkness belonged to him. "Stay behind me," he said calmly, not to his daughter, to me. Gunfire echoed somewhere distant beyond the gates. My training surged forward, calculating exits, angles, threats. I moved instinctively toward the door. His hand caught my waist. Firm, unyielding. Heat seared through the thin fabric of my dress. "I said," he repeated softly near my ear, "behind me." It wasn't anger, it was command. My body responded before my pride could argue. He shifted slightly, positioning himself between me and the hallway. The air around him changed, thicker, hotter, charged with something ancient pressing against human restraint. A guard rushed in. "Perimeter breach contained. 2 intruders neutralized." Rafael didn't look away from me when he answered. "Double the north wall." "Yes, sir." When the guard left, silence lingered, too heavy, too aware.
His daughter was escorted safely away moments later, leaving us alone in the dim gold light. His hand was still on my waist, still warm, still claiming space that wasn't his. "You were going to step in front of me," he said quietly. "I can take care of myself." "I don't doubt that." His thumb shifted slightly against my side, not inappropriate, just enough to remind me he was there. "But you will not take bullets meant for me." The statement unsettled me more than the gunfire had. "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes darkened, gold flickering beneath the surface. "Because what's mine," he said slowly, "is not expendable." Mine. The words settled into my skin like heat beneath bone. "You don't own me," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel his breath. "I don't own anyone," he murmured. "Ownership implies fragility." His fingers tightened slightly before releasing. "I protect what I choose." The dragon stirred again. I felt it in the charged air between us, possessive, territorial, ancient, and terrifyingly focused. "You're playing a dangerous game," I whispered. His gaze dropped to my mouth briefly before lifting again. "No," he said softly. "I never play." A beat of silence, then his knuckles brushed along my jaw. Light, measured, gone almost instantly, but the heat lingered. "I can hear your heartbeat," he added, voice lower now. "It changes when I'm near." My breath caught. That's not fear. The words were not a question, they were a claim. And for the first time since entering this house, I wasn't entirely sure he was wrong. War didn't knock, it detonated. The explosion tore through the south perimeter just after midnight, shaking the mansion to its foundations. Glass shattered, alarms screamed. Guards flooded the courtyard like shadows armed with rifles and vengeance. Rival cartel. Not subtle. Not careful. Bold. I was halfway down the corridor toward his daughter's room when Rafael intercepted me. Gun in one hand, fire in his eyes. "Inside," he ordered. "I can help." "Inside." This time it wasn't soft. It was command, sharpened by fury. Another blast echoed from the outer gates. Smoke began crawling across the marble floors. He moved fast, too fast. Human reflexes didn't explain it. He positioned himself between me and the stairwell, just as two armed men forced entry through the lower doors. Gunfire erupted. Rafael didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, and the air ignited. Flames burst from his hands, coiling through the corridor like living serpents. The intruders didn't have time to scream. The fire obeyed him. Precise, controlled, ruthless. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was frozen by the power of it. This was no rumor, no exaggeration. The Mafia King was a dragon lord, and he was furious. When the last ember died, silence fell heavy and thick. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. Rafael stood still in the aftermath, chest rising slowly, suit unburned despite the heat he commanded. Then he turned to me, and something shifted. Not the dragon, the man. "You're shaking," he said quietly. Only then did I realize I was. He stepped closer, holstering his weapon. His hands, those lethal, fire-bearing hands, framed my face carefully. Not claiming, steadying. "Look at me." I did. The gold in his eyes flickered faintly, but his touch was controlled now, grounded. "I told you," he murmured. You are not safe near me. You walked into flames for me, I whispered back. A beat of silence. His jaw tightened. You were in my line of sight. That's not what I meant. The admission hung between us. He searched my face like he was trying to solve something dangerous. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, his men securing the perimeter, bodies being removed. But in this corridor, it was just breath and heat and tension stretched too tight. You should be afraid, he said. Are you? The question slipped out before caution could stop it. His thumb brushed beneath my eye, catching ash I hadn't noticed. I am not afraid of war, he replied evenly. Then what are you afraid of? For the first time since I met him, Rafael hesitated, not visibly, not weakly, but enough. You, he said at last. The word didn't sound like vulnerability. It sounded like inevitability. Footsteps approached again, reality closing in. His hands dropped slowly, mask returning, King restored. Stay in your room tonight, he ordered, voice cool once more. And yet, as he turned away to command his empire, I knew something irreversible had just shifted. Because dragons burn enemies without hesitation. But kings? Kings only fear what they cannot control.
The mistake wasn't sloppy. It was inevitable. I should have known a man who ruled empires and commanded fire would eventually notice the smallest fracture in routine. It happened in his study, the room where he governed both cartel shipments and ancient secrets. Dragon statues watched from carved shelves. A medieval blade rested mounted behind his desk, like a warning from another century. I entered to retrieve a book I'd intentionally misplaced, a cover for accessing the hidden surveillance node behind the east wall. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. Heat. Not subtle, not restrained. Rafael was already there, standing by the window, waiting. You're thorough, he said without turning. My pulse stumbled. I like order. Order, he repeated softly. Or information. Silence. The door clicked shut behind me, too loud. He turned slowly. No gun, no raised voice, just eyes burning faintly gold beneath controlled fury. Who do you report to? He asked. Not if, who. My throat tightened, but training held. I don't know what you're talking about. He crossed the room in 3 steps, too fast, too precise. His hand braced against the wall beside my head, caging me without touching. The heat rolled off him in waves now, dragon rising, barely restrained beneath skin. Do not insult me, he said quietly. That was worse than shouting. You memorized guard rotations, he continued. You avoid blind spots. You observe like a predator. His gaze locked onto mine. You were never just a nanny. The truth pressed against my ribs, desperate and dangerous. I had a job to do, I said. The words felt smaller than they should have. His jaw tightened. And what am I? He asked. Your target? I didn't answer. That was answer enough. The temperature spiked sharply. A nearby candle flared without being touched. His dragon was no longer hiding. You came into my home, he said, voice dropping lower, darker. Into my daughter's life. There it was. Not anger for himself, but for her. I never meant to hurt her, I whispered. Intentions do not erase betrayal. The word cut. Betrayal. He stepped back suddenly, running a hand through his hair like he was restraining something violent beneath his skin. You should have feared me, he said.
I did. Not enough. Silence crashed between us. Then I did the most reckless thing I'd done since accepting this mission. I was sent to expose a monster, I said softly. But I found a man. His eyes snapped back to mine. Do not romanticize me, he warned. I'm not. I stepped closer this time, voluntarily. You protect your people. You protect your daughter. You burn those who threaten what's yours. A dangerous pause. And what am I? He asked again. This time it wasn't accusation. It was something far more vulnerable. My career, my mission, my loyalty, all of it trembled. You are the man I was supposed to destroy, I said honestly. And? The dragon waited. The king waited. My heart made the decision before my mind could stop it. And I don't want to. The confession landed like a spark in dry air. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, the flames around the room slowly dimmed. Not gone, controlled. He stepped closer, close enough that our breaths mingled. If you lie to me again, he said softly, dangerously, there will be nothing left of you to forgive. It wasn't a threat. It was truth. And for the first time, I understood exactly what choosing him would cost. The evidence was enough to bury him. Encrypted financial trails, thermal imaging anomalies, satellite footage of fire that defied physics, and my full report. All it would take was one secure transmission. One button. Rafael De Silva, Mafia Sovereign, Dragon Lord, international threat, would become the most hunted being on Earth. I stood alone in the surveillance room beneath the mansion, staring at the glowing screen. Above me, he was preparing for war. Not against the government, against a rival cartel bold enough to challenge his rule after the recent attack. He hadn't touched me since the night in his study, hadn't cornered me, hadn't commanded me. He had done something worse. He had given me space, as if the choice was mine. That terrified me more than his fire ever had. My communicator blinked. Agent Torres, status update required, evidence upload pending. I closed my eyes. I saw him kneeling to tie his daughter's shoes. I saw him standing in flame, controlled and lethal. I heard his voice in the corridor. If you lie to me again, there will be nothing left of you to forgive. This wasn't about innocence. He wasn't innocent. He ruled a cartel empire with precision and brutality. But he also ruled with order. No trafficking of children, no civilian massacres, no chaos beyond what he sanctioned. A king, not a madman. And kings reshape the world in their own image. The screen blinked again. Upload? Yes/no. My thumb hovered. Then I deleted the file. Every backup, every report, every trace of thermal data linking him to the impossible. The system wiped clean in seconds. My career burned quietly into digital ash. The communicator vibrated violently with incoming calls. I crushed it beneath my heel. The decision settled into my bones like heat. I wasn't protecting a monster. I was choosing a sovereign. Footsteps echoed behind me. I didn't turn. I was hoping, Rafael said quietly, you would come here. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't relieved. It was steady. You knew, I said. I know you. Silence stretched. Then I faced him. No lies left. I destroyed it, I told him. All of it. His gaze searched mine carefully, like he was measuring truth against instinct. And why, he asked softly, would you do that? Because I love you. The words hovered, dangerous and exposed. Instead, I stepped toward him. Because I don't want a world where you're hunted, I said. And I don't want a life where I'm your enemy. The dragon flickered behind his eyes. Not rage. Recognition. You understand what this means, he said. Yes. No agency. No badge. No return. Just fire. He moved closer slowly this time. Not caging. Not commanding. Choosing. His hand lifted to my jaw, the same deliberate touch from the night we met. You are walking into flame, he murmured. I held his gaze. Then let it burn. For a heartbeat, the world felt suspended. Then he kissed my forehead. Not possession. Promise. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Rivals gathering. Empires shifting. Inside, a new one formed. Not just cartel. Not just dragon. But king and queen. They tried to cage the dragon, he said softly. I almost smiled. They should have aimed for the woman.